Hello and welcome to the Rippling Pages. This is the podcast where we have a coffee with the world's most interesting writers to inspire your reading and writing. It's all crafted and curated by me, Liam Bishop. Tonight I am actually having a coffee with one of the Netherlands' most interesting writers because we're recording the Rippling Pages in a live Leeds studio, or a library at least anyway. I'm sitting here with the writer Eva Meijer to discuss their book, See Now. A government who seems slow to respond to a rapidly encroaching crisis, marketing executives exploiting ways to make quick cash, a missing prime minister, Leavers and Remainers conflicted about the right course of action. It all sounds like a playbook for our recent political crises. But when the dams start bursting in the Netherlands and the country rapidly begins to flood and be subsumed, what happens when people are faced with the unthinkable in this new waterworld? No Kevin Costner either. Waterworld fans? No? Anyway, Eva Meijer is a philosopher, visual artist, writer and singer-songwriter. And their fiction, their books have been translated into over 20 languages. You're also an author of several works of non-fiction in both English and Dutch. Their books have received numerous awards, including the Hallevine Prize. See Now is their second novel, and the second to be translated into English, following Bird Cottage. Eva, thank you very much for joining me on the Rippling Pages.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks for coming to Leeds.
Thanks.
How are you finding it?
Well, I just arrived, so
Okay.
I can't really say anything about Leeds.
Dark?
Yeah, it wasn't dark when I arrived, but now it's dark. Yes.
You've been to Leeds before?
Yes, at university.
Ah, did University of?
For a conference.
Oh, okay. Well, I hope you're enjoying it in any form whatsoever. Let's get into your book, and thanks for sharing some time with me. I know that you've got a busy schedule. Just before we get started, remember to like, share, follow, subscribe, or leave a review of the Rippling Pages if you enjoy the show. I mean, not you, Eva, but you're more than welcome to if you'd like to.
I will think about it.
Okay, we'll see how this goes, shall we?
Yes.
But welcome to the Rippling Pages, Eva. We'll hear a little bit more about what this novel is about. And it's right there if you'd like it.
Yeah, so in See Now, the sea floods the Netherlands 1 kilometer a day. And in the beginning, the people don't really understand what's happening. And I wrote this book just after the COVID pandemic. So in the Netherlands, we had a lot of press conferences, and this was a big inspiration for this novel as well, because the government response is actually quite similar. So politicians are not very eager to do anything about this or to really figure out what's happening. In the meantime, scientists and activists and others, of course, try to figure out what's going on with the sea, but it remains a mystery. And in the book, you kind of follow different human beings, but also non-human beings, who all respond in their own way to the sea flooding the country. For humans, it's not great, but for certain sea creatures and fishes, like herrings, for example, it's actually a good thing. At a certain point, the whole country is flooded, and then 3 human beings go back on a boat, and they are all trying to save somebody.
What I notice is that there is that terror of flooding, but you write about the people that are caught up, you write about all the rubbish, the flotsam that's caught up, but then you also very eloquently just describe birds that are bobbing on the water. So that was an intentional thing to show us sort of, is it about serenity?
Well, I think that as humans, we tend to think about life in human terms. We're very obsessed with our own species. And that's the cause of a lot of problems for non-human animals, but also for the ecological crisis that we are witnessing at the moment, the climate crisis, global warming, rising sea levels, all of these things. So this human attitude is deeply problematic. To move away from making this only a human story, and the book emphasizes that we are all always already part of a larger whole, and that this is a source of comfort for us. But in a sense, it's also the solution to the problems that we are facing. So on the one hand, it's a dystopian narrative, even though it's also quite funny. A lot of the things that are happening.
Very ironically dry humor. For a very novel about the sea and wetness, it's a very dry humor.
And I think that it's really a book that made Dutch people see their country differently. It even made me see the country differently. If I took trips by train, for example, I was really, looking at the different fields and infrastructure and thinking, okay, we're going to lose all this. But at the same time, I also want to present another picture of reality and an alternative to this human-centered narrative that's dominating our media and discussions with one another.
And that's what a lot of your academic work focuses on, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I know you've got an extensive publishing career in the Netherlands, books published here, Peirene Press, but your academic work focuses on, is it the language of animals?
Yes, to some extent. Language and politics. Okay. So I wrote my PhD thesis about political animal voices, because humans often think that other animals do not speak, that humans are the only beings who have language, as if we have language. We don't have language. If anyone has anyone, then language has us. Instead of the other way around. And when I began writing about non-human animals and language, I soon found out that this is a deeply political question. So I write about non-human animals and justice and democracy and these kinds of things in different constellations.
And that directly informed the book then?
Yes, I think that all the work informs the other work in sort of a very natural process that I'm part of as well, in some sense.
Well, let's focus then on what the people do and how do they start responding. You mentioned the COVID pandemic, but what are some of the things that happen once people realize there's a kilometre of land is taken up each day?
Well, one very clear response comes from the scientists. So scientists really try to figure out what's going on in the language of science with the tools of science. There are also activists that gather and discuss what's going on, provide alternatives, want to raise awareness about the situation. But a big role in the book is for the politicians, that in the beginning try to ignore this thing that's happening, and then when they can't ignore it anymore, because The Hague, as you might know, is quite close to the coast in the Netherlands, and our government is located in The Hague, so they're one of the first cities to go. The politicians then devise a scheme. So this group of humans, the hospitals need to be evacuated, care homes need to be evacuated. There's art. What do we do with the art? The art is being categorized. There's expensive art that's also of great symbolic value. So that's the art that needs to be saved first. And there's the expensive art that's maybe not so very relevant, but still important economically. There's also art that's really important for the Dutch as a people, but is worth less. So they need to make all of these judgments about the value of objects, but also about the value of lives. Yeah. And I think that we're seeing that in a lot of different incarnations in the context of the climate crisis, because the consumerism of Western humans obviously makes it very hard for humans elsewhere on the planet to live life as they know it. And there are already a lot of climate refugees in the world, not in the Netherlands. We at this point in time do not need to flee our country, but lots of others do. Also, lots of non-human animal communities need to relocate. And very often, this is the ways that we respond are not democratic or governed by any kind of justice. It's really about economic decisions. And this is something that happens in the book as well. And of course, it's an emergency, so people need to act fast. But there's a critique.
They don't always, do they? Cost-benefit analyses, scientific literature. They send out the army. It does sound very pressing. It sounds very similar to what happened with the COVID-19 pandemic. But knowing that this is an ecological crisis, also reads like times like a. And the line that you use in the first page is almost like something taken from a postmodern Don DeLillo novel. It's this sort of very strange, surreal, absurd element to it as well. But do you think then this is how people would respond in an ecological crisis? Would that be similar to the COVID-19?
Yes, I think we are already responding in that sense. So
and is that a response? Sorry, just right. Is that a response? Is that quite not a human response, a natural? But is that how we respond to panic, chaos, emergencies?
Well, so the climate crisis is a crisis in slow motion for many European countries at the moment, at least. I know that in the UK, there are also places where there are already discussions about giving land back to the sea. Very often these are economic discussions as well. So I don't think it's a natural response. I think it's a neoliberal capitalist response, and a very problematic response. And one of the things that one of the things that are important about this as well is that the language that we use to speak about these kind of phenomena determines what we can say and also what we can do about something. So in the book, there are many different ways in which the human beings use language. There's the political discourse, the scientific discourse, the discourse of poetry, because there's also a young poet in the book who writes little poems about the sea. And all of these ways of using language show something else about our reality. And I think that a novel is a very suitable medium for writing about these kinds of crises, because it allows you to present all of these different perspectives.
Yes.
So you can say a bit more about how humans respond, because yes, some humans don't respond, but others do. You know, we already have the tools and the means and the words to adequately respond to these kinds of issues.
Yeah, and I'd like to speak to about language. I'd like to speak to about some of the characters, but in relation to that, you take the narrative, the viewpoint is elevated, and it literally feels like a helicopter, news helicopter going over and looking what's going on. So you do focus in on like Steen, for instance, but there is there's an element to this where you really choose to pan out, take the camera out. Why was that? Why did you choose to do that?
Well, first of all, I'm not the kind of writer who chooses a lot when it comes to books. So I see myself as kind of intermediate between the story and the world. And I think that it's my job to be as porous as possible in both directions, towards the book and towards the world.
That's interesting.
So I don't think about writing from above. I often have a vision, an idea what a novel is going to be about, and then I enter the story and I write it down, and then at the end I go back and edit and look at how it should be, but I don't begin with that. And I think with this book, the rhythm was very important. So you have the 1 kilometer a day, and this is for a writer it's very easy, because I knew what I needed to do, and then at a certain point this is disrupted. The sea stops for a bit, and there's a big storm, so there's a lot of kilometers in one day. But this pace was very nice for me. It was very. I enter the film when I write, you know. So I just write down what I see. But I think that your question has to do with actually taking different perspectives, moving away from the human perspective, because there's a flock of pigeons that flies away at a certain point. One morning, the amphibians decide to go, and they move along, and I think that taking this it's a very funny narrator in this book that I mean, you don't choose your narrator; they're part of the story, so they choose you. This narrator sort of zooms in and out, moves really into the humans and into the sea, and then zooms out again. And
is that non-human, or are you trying to achieve there something that is not human in that perspective?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, this book is ultimately, the sea is the protagonist of the book for me. I'm not, I should say, I'm speaking about the book now as if I know what it's about, but I think that all readers have their own ideas about what the book is about. I always think that a book is, at least half of the meaning of the book belongs to the reader. So if others have other ideas about this, then and that's great, and I'm open to this as well. But I think that the sea is the main character, and the humans follow, and there's a kind of indifference, maybe even coldness to the sea, but there's also comfort in being in actually witnessing the sea and what happens.
Yeah. Is there then, so thinking then about language and knowing that you are then, I mean, what is that philosophy then? What is it about this what is it about the sea and the looking at it? Because it rages, I mean, you get a real sense of perspective of where you are in the world when you're watching the sea. People find it very therapeutic. What is that? Is that something that, because we see the sea here, and you're right, very, you say things like the sea was swallowing the land. And that's quite a specific image, I think, about quite a human way that, an anthropomorphized, animalistic way that the sea is interacting with the land. So what is that then in relation to that belief of watching the sea? You know, what does the sea possess, I guess, is the question.
Well, I think that everybody knows the feeling of being in the mountains or walking on the beach or being in the forest, and suddenly not being just yourself, but feeling that you are part of this bigger world. And that is meaningful. That's a very meaningful experience for humans. And in this book, which is ultimately also really a book about the Netherlands. And this country has had a very tense relationship with the sea forever. We live below sea level. And I think that my generation is one of the first generations that feels very comfortable on land. But the generations before me, because there have also been disasters, a lot of people worked on the sea or with the water. There has been a lot of fear always of this sea, and also a lot of joy, for example, connected to the other water bodies in the country with swimming and ice skating. But yeah, we're a very watery country and a very watery people. But right now, so
is there something about loss then? Do you think there's something that's been lost in?
Yes, okay. Something definitely has been lost. And there's a discussion that we're not really having in the Netherlands at the moment, which is that a large part of the country are actually going to be underwater in the coming decades, not only because of rising sea levels, but also because the rivers are, the water level in the rivers is rising, so there will be more floods. And there's also going to be a lot more dry spells. So it will be more dry and more wet. And ultimately, this is, of course, a discussion that we need to have. There's now, the narrative now is that we need to learn to think with the sea, which is actually one of the things that I want to write about in the book as well. To go back to your question about the role of the sea in the story, I find it very interesting in our time that nature is starting to speak back. So for a very long time, humans felt on top of everything, at least in certain parts of the world, especially Europe, especially the Netherlands, where we have very few natural areas, and our response to unwanted non-human animals or plants is to kill them and eradicate them. Dutch people feel very much on top of nature. And now we are beginning to experience cracks in this story in different parts of the world. And I wanted to emphasize this raising of the voice of nature in the raising of the voice of the sea.
And we're seeing that, aren't we? We're seeing that today in Asia, Southeast Asia. So we're going to have a quick break on the Rippling Pages, Eva. And we're going to come back. We're going to talk more about sea now. There's a Rippling Pages Bookshop, Eva. It's all online and it's hosted by bookshop.org.uk. So all books from Rippling Pages guests, such as yourself and all the other great guests we've had on the show, are all stocked on there. And the best bit, all the books are sourced from indie bookshops. So not only supporting the podcast, if you buy from there, you're supporting indie bookshops as well. That sounds great, doesn't it?
Yes.
So why not go and buy Eva's book on bookshop.org.uk, or you can go to Peirene's website and buy directly as well. Sorry. Okay, let's get back into it. Let's get back into See Now by Eva Meijer. Eva, thanks. Welcome back. Thanks for coming back. Not that you left, but thanks for coming back. I want to talk about. How would I pronounce it? Stain. Forgive me. Sorry.
Stone. It's called. The translation is
stone.
Would be stone.
Oh
yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Stain or stone?
Stain.
Stain. Okay, I want to talk about Stain.
Yes.
And Stain is a philosopher.
Oceanographer. Yes.
Right. Oceanographer.
Yes.
Forgive me. Sorry, oceanographer. Okay, we got there. You're translating for me now. So most choose to abandon the country. Most choose to leave. But Stain doesn't. And your second half of the novel goes into the perspective of the people that choose to try and survive here. Can you tell us about those choices?
You mean why people would want to stay in the
more country? About why did you write that in that way?
Well, I think I wanted to. So one of the hopeful things about this book is that most human beings find a new life for themselves. And some do that in a new country. Others choose to stay on the roofs of Amsterdam. And this is also where the three travelers had to when they go back into the country. And I think that ultimately this is also governed by inequality, because not all human beings want to be part of the system or can be part of the system. There are homeless people and squatters and others who choose to remain. But there are also some very rich people who have their parties, who have their roof parties on the country that has drowned. So I think that these scenes in Amsterdam later on in the story, sort of show us how life turns out for different human beings, and also how much we can do, because yes, we can choose to care about others, like Steen and Ari and Willow do. But yeah, there's also very little, because there's, for example, one person in the story who's a refugee and who really doesn't have the possibility to go with the others. So yeah.
And this is where I found that it was quite a hopeful novel. Not hope. There is some hope, I think. Or would you describe it as hope? Would you describe it as something else? You're watching people adapt. It's not all. It's not. But there are obviously some people who suffer.
Yes, humans and other animals adapt, and this is also how life works. So one of the things that, this is a book about an ecological crisis. It's a book about the sea. It's also a book about death. When I wrote this book, my father died. I did tell him about it. I think I nearly finished it when he died, but he was ill during the writing of the book. And for me, on a sort of deeper level, the novel is very much about how you continue, how life continues after big disasters. And this, with big disasters, I mean the events that change something fundamental in our lives. And this can be the death of a loved one. It can be an ecological disaster that happens in your life. It can be many things, I think. But there's life, there is still life, and life continues. And for me, this is also very much connected to the understanding that we are part of webs of relations with non-human beings as well. So this idea that we are part of nature and that we are part of a bigger whole that contributes to how we understand life and create meaning. But ultimately, it's a book about endings and new beginnings.
Well, thanks for sharing that. And so, is there a new beginning then?
For some, there is a new beginning, and for others, not, I think. But I think that ultimately, if we then step out of the book, we should realize that, hey, we don't have a lot of space because these crises are actually happening. So I would like to call upon everybody to create these new beginnings, because hope is a practice. Hope is not something that's given to you and that you receive and suddenly feel or something.
No.
You need to hope is work.
But there's quite a personal element to that, isn't there, as well then? And I guess just to finish then, is there, well, I could talk for a long time, but I'm curious then, knowing that you've got this philosophy about the world, but knowing there's this personal experience behind the novel, did the philosophy, the ideas that you have about it, did they help you through that period, or was it the event, your father, did that inform the philosophy of the book, if that makes sense?
Yeah, both. I think that working and writing is for me always a good way to it's just I think there's a great freedom in writing. I don't know this freedom in any other way, and especially in writing novels. But I think, yes, there's always the ongoing translation between life and the work and life and the work. And I'm very lucky to be able to write books.
Yeah, well, and I'm pleased that you were afforded that experience. And so there's a very global idea to this novel, but at the heart of it, something quite personal, very personal.
It's many things, and that's I hope that for other readers it will be yet other things.
Yeah, well, I loved it, and I read it in so many different ways, with so many different references, and I did see there was adaptation, and whether that's related to mourning or ecology or animals or the sea or something else entirely. There is we find ways to adapt, and that's how I read the sort of a parable at the end, isn't there, about Stein and group on the boat doing that.
Mm.
What we're going to do then is, since we're here, and usually Rippling Pages listeners get bonus content where we talk about objects of influence, but I thought since you're here, we can do this all in one night, one evening. Since we are in a live Leeds studio after all, influence, we talk a lot about books and how books influence and how other artists influence us. But what I quite like to understand in objects of influence is, are there any objects or items that you associate with the writing of the book? It doesn't have to be anything too sentimental. It's not to sentimentalize the process of writing too much. It's just a way to get to know you and your work in a different way. So, Eva, I don't know if anything comes to mind.
Well, I brought my mouth mask.
Okay.
I'm masking. I had long COVID for 2 years, so I'm still masking because I need to be careful with not getting ill again. But when you asked me about bringing an object related to writing this novel, I also thought about the mask. Because when I began writing this novel, the COVID pandemic had just sort of mellowed down a little bit. But I was very struck during this time by the press conferences that our Prime Minister gave, Mark Rutte. And especially his use of language, because he had a very good way of not saying anything while speaking a lot. But there was also something cozy about it. Let's collectively listen to these press conferences. But the response of the Dutch government to the COVID pandemic has been influential in, first of all, how I portrayed certain characters in the book, but also it also inspired deeper questions about the kind of lives that we find valuable as humans, how we respond to crisis, and how we can the difficulties that neoliberal societies have in creating adequate systems of care for human and non-human beings.
Wow. So you spoke about the coziness then. So is this when you were talking about the Prime Minister doing the daily press conferences?
Yes.
Okay. And what do you think that effect was? What do you think was happening there then on a wider level?
Well, I think that for the Dutch, the Dutch attitude towards the Dutch are quite anarchist.
Right. Okay.
And also a kind of people who don't like to be told to do anything. So, but I think that with this pandemic, you very clearly saw that there are some that most humans just want to do the right thing, so they want to obey the government. We now have this a little bit with the all this talk about emergency packages. I don't know if you have the same thing over here. There's a lot of fear for cyber attacks and all of these things. So,
like an alert, an alert system.
So Dutch people are now buying flashlights and water bottles and all of these things. Not masks. That's just.
So you wear a mask then? Quite a lot.
Yes, I do. Yes.
Okay. And so writing this book, I mean, what?
Not when I'm at home writing.
No, well, maybe. But I guess for a mask is it's a very cultural idea, isn't it? Of a mask, pre-COVID. What do you think? I guess I'm asking, why did you choose this as quite a personal item in relation to the book? What does the mask signify?
Well, like I just said, that it sort of signifies the human attitude towards the COVID pandemic, which is exemplary.
Is that your attitude,
how
though?
We deal with ecological crisis as well? No, my own attitude is quite activist in general, and I think that we should do a lot more for non-human beings and non-human and human beings as well to achieve justice.
And how do you respond to that when you see people like in your book not doing that? Mm-hmm. How is it writing people that don't do that? If you've got this real passion, then how is it?
Well, I think that the difference between academic work and novels, for example, is that in academic work you construct a clear argument, and you give reasons, and you use a lot of facts. But I think that novels are very good for showing the ambiguity that is quite characteristic for human life.
Right. Well, yeah, it's the mask is with us. It's on the table.
It's with us.
Yeah.
The book is with us as well.
The book is with us. Do you think more people should be wearing masks? Do you think it's
yes?
Yeah.
Yes. Wear masks. Read books.
Yeah. And, it's shocking though, isn't it? It is. I was speaking to someone. So I work in health research, and I was working in the pandemic, in health research and talking to people about clinical trials in the pandemic. And we're not out of a pandemic. Technically, we're still living in a pandemic. I mean, I don't wear a mask, so I can't profess to be, any better than anyone else. But we are still living in a pandemic.
Yeah, and it's very culturally determined, because in Asia, it's I think half of the people mask in on public transport. So it's and over here it's still weird. In Dutch, in the Netherlands, people are quite aggressive even.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
About wearing them or not wearing them?
Wearing them.
Wow. Okay.
Yes. So there's a lot of sort of anger still, I think, because of the government telling us what to do. This big conspiracy.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Where does that come from? What is that? Do you know what I mean? Because I mean, it's
fake news. It's fake news.
Do you think?
Yeah, part of it, big part of it.
It is shocking, and it does influence people's perception. And you see that in your novel. You see people being influenced by hearsay, fake news, fear, and I think it comes a lot from. Well, personally, when I'm talking about health research, it comes from fear.
Yes, I think so as well.
People are scared.
Yes,
and legitimately, but it's not helped, is it, by
getting angry at others?
Yeah, it's I agree. So just very quickly to finish off, I'm very, very excited. I've got my first Patreon. So someone's subscribing to the podcast and getting a monthly rewardship. One of the rewards is that they get a shout out at the end of the show. Can we thank Ian Higgs?
Of course.
Thank you. So from Eva and me, Ian Higgs, thank you very much for being my first patron.
Thank you, Ian.
Eva, I've loved talking to you. Thank you so much for joining me on the Rippling Pages, talking about your book, See Now. It's published by Peirene. It's published by Peirene. Peirene. I forgot it on my head. Peirene. It's Peirene, isn't it? Right, Eva. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you, getting to know your book. See Now. It's published by Peirene Press. It's translated from the Dutch by Anne Thompson Melo. But for now, thank you very much for joining me on the Rippling Pages.
Thank you.
Thank you.